Take you around Dog Nation in 90 seconds. This is DN90. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Adams. The goal of an appearance at SEC Media Days is typically to avoid controversy at any cost. For the most part, Georgia seemingly achieved that last week when it made its appearance in Hoover, Alabama on Tuesday. One of the main ways in which Georgia got the job done was seemingly anticipating what some of the tough questions were going to be, including coming up short for the second consecutive year in terms of beating Alabama and winning a national championship. Before Georgia coach Kirby Smart could be asked any questions when he met at the podium on Tuesday, he took that issue head on and addressed that himself. In fact, here's what he had to say.
We understand how close we've been to taking the next step, and although 24-5 the last two seasons is good, it's not good enough. It's not where we expect to be at the University of Georgia.
No excuse making, no equivocating from Smart, simply admitting that in 2019 Georgia needs to do more. Similar vein was struck by Georgia safety J.R. Reed. Asked about Alabama, the team that has beaten Georgia in the last two seasons in the game that probably mattered more than any other, J.R. Reed said, listen, this is a lot more than about just one opponent, and it's not really about the Crimson Tide so much at all. Here's what Reed said about that.
What you did last year is not enough, so let's do more. You know, it has nothing to do with Alabama. It just has something to do with yourself and looking the man in the mirror and figuring out where you can work at and where you can get better.
So there's an element of what Reed says and certainly what Smart says that might sound a bit like coach speak, but at least it's not the kind of thing that's going to lead to a whole lot of criticism. It's not the kind of thing that's probably going to generate much of a distraction. Slightly different situation involving Georgia's arch nemesis Alabama, though, at the same event. Seemingly a few times Alabama kind of courted controversy a bit. It starts with Alabama coach Nick Saban, who was quoted during SEC Media Days what appeared to be putting the blame on the loss for Clemson in the national championship to the fact that some of his assistant coaches were distracted looking for their own head coaching jobs and not fully focused on what was going on with the Crimson Tide. Now, there was only one Crimson Tide assistant a year ago that became a head coach. That's Mike Locksley, the former Alabama offensive coordinator, who's now head coach at Maryland. Well, he was quoted by Emily Giambalvo from the Washington Post last week of saying, certainly Saban's not talking about me when he says guys were distracted. He says he's very proud of the job that he was doing a year ago there with the Crimson Tide. Now, after all of this, Saban, what he said, a few Alabama players essentially saying they still thought they were better than Clemson, even though Clemson beat in the national championship game. This led to Alex Scarborough from ESPN, an outlet that's typically fairly cozy with Alabama, to kind of take a little bit of a shot at the Crimson Tide. Scarborough wrote this week that Saban's capital P process needs an adjustment in the respect that they're not giving enough credit to Clemson. There needs to be a new chapter added, one dedicated to more humility. So ESPN apparently not all that happy with the way that Alabama talked to the media last week at SEC Media Days. Georgia at least avoided that kind of controversy. From that standpoint, it's probably a good deal for the Dogs. Ultimately, though, all the talking doesn't really matter all that much. These things, whether it be Georgia versus Alabama, Alabama versus Clemson, or maybe finally getting a chance to see the Dogs and the Tigers in the college football playoff, this will eventually all be settled on the field. For more stories like these, including what happened last week at SEC Media Days, make sure you check out DogNation.com. And while you're there, find out more details about the upcoming Dog Nation Days of Summer, including Thursday, August 1st at Brasstown Valley Resort and Spa in beautiful Towns County, Georgia. You can even register for your chance to win a VIP stay giveaway courtesy of our friends at Brasstown Valley Resort and Spa, but you've got to go to DogNation.com to get all the details, including signing up for your chance to win. Y'all have a good day. I'll see you back here again tomorrow for another episode of DN90.